You think you know the company you work for. You trade your time, your talent, your life for a paycheck. But what if that trade was a lie? What if the value they placed on you and the value they sold you for were two completely different worlds? For one employee, discovering that difference wasn't just an insult. It was a declaration of war. The phone felt welded to Jennifer Reed's ear. On the other end, the chief marketing officer of a multi-million-dollar tech company, a man named Mr. Harrington, was practically breathing fire. I don't care about your team's creative process, Jennifer. The launch is in 72 hours, and the entire digital campaign you delivered is wrong. The color palette is off, the copy is weak, and the call to action is buried. This is a catastrophe. Jennifer's office, the sprawling open-plan space of Apex Digital Strategies, was a hive of nervous energy. Her boss, the impossibly slick Marcus Thorne, was pacing near the glass-walled conference room, shooting her looks that were equal parts encouragement and threat. This was his biggest account. Her biggest account. Jennifer took a slow, deliberate breath, her voice a calm island in Harrington's storm. Mr. Harrington, I understand your frustration completely. Let me pull up the final creative brief you signed off on. Reference number 7 Alpha Niner. A flurry of clicks echoed from her keyboard. I see here that the approved palette was Oceanic Calm, which is what we used. The copy was approved by your legal team on Tuesday. However, she paused, letting the silence hang. I hear you. The launch is everything. Give me 90 minutes. 90 minutes for what? To make more mistakes? He sneered. No, sir, Jennifer said, her voice firm. To fix it. I will personally recalibrate the color grade on all 120 visual assets. I will rewrite the headline copy myself for A/B testing, and I will recode the landing pages to make the CTA the primary focus. You will have 3 new complete campaign options in your inbox in 1 hour and 30 minutes, I promise. There was a long pause. Fine, Harrington grumbled. 90 minutes. Don't disappoint me, Reed. The line went dead. Jennifer didn't even flinch. She cracked her knuckles, a silent ritual, and dove in. For the next hour and a half, she was a blur of focused intensity. She wasn't just a project manager. She was a designer, a coder, a copywriter. A one-woman army putting out a 5-alarm fire. The rest of the office gave her a wide berth, knowing not to interrupt the master at work. 87 minutes later, she hit send. A new email, containing 3 flawless campaign variations, was on its way to Harrington. 10 minutes after that, her phone buzzed. It was an email from Harrington himself. The subject? Incredible. The body. You saved us. We're going with option 2. Launch is a go. Thank you. A collective sigh of relief swept through the office. Marcus strode over to her desk, a predatory smile on his face. Reed, that's why you're my superstar, you see? A little pressure is all it takes to make diamonds. He clapped her on the shoulder. Print out the final project summary and the monthly client invoice for Harrington's account. I need to sign off on them before they go out. Leave them on my desk. Jennifer nodded, her adrenaline finally starting to fade. She compiled the summary and pulled up the invoice template. It was pre-filled by accounting. All she had to do was hit print. She walked over to the large shared printer at the end of the hall. The machine whirred to life, spitting out the 2 pages. She picked them up, but as she turned, she bumped into a colleague, and the papers scattered to the floor. As she bent to pick them up, her eyes caught a line item on the invoice. It was a page she'd never seen before, a detailed breakdown for the client. And on it, a single line made the air leave her lungs. Project Management and Creative Execution. J. Reed. 160 hours at $250 per hour. Total, $40,000. Jennifer stared at the number, $250 per hour for her work. She thought about her last paycheck. She had worked 60 hours a week that month, often staying past midnight to hit deadlines just like today. She was paid a flat rate, which, when she did the math, came out to just over $10 an hour. 10. She stood up slowly, the papers trembling in her hand. She looked from the invoice to her reflection in the darkened office window. The exhausted, underpaid project manager and the $40,000 asset on the paper were the same person, but they lived in different universes. Marcus was billing her out at 25 times what he was paying her. He hadn't just put a markup on her work. He had built a palace of profit on a foundation of her exploitation. The relief of saving the campaign vanished, replaced by a cold, hard knot of fury in her stomach. This wasn't just business. This was a profound betrayal. As she walked to Marcus's office and placed the papers on his polished mahogany desk, she didn't see a boss. She saw a target, and in that moment, she made a silent, unbreakable vow. She wasn't just going to quit. She was going to burn his entire corrupt empire to the ground. This was no longer a job. It was a mission. The next morning, Jennifer walked into Apex Digital Strategies a different person. The cheerful can-do attitude she usually wore like a uniform was gone, replaced by a quiet, watchful focus. She greeted her colleagues with a practiced smile, but her eyes were scanning, observing, collecting data. Her desk was no longer just a workspace. It was an intelligence-gathering outpost in enemy territory. Her first stop before work wasn't the coffee shop. It was an office supply store. She purchased a simple black hardbound notebook and a set of fine-tipped pens. On the first page, she wrote a title in neat block letters, Project Nightingale. It was a nod to Florence Nightingale, the famous record keeper whose meticulous data collection revolutionized modern nursing. Jennifer's data, she hoped, would revolutionize her own life. This notebook became her Bible, her war journal. Every single task she performed was logged with military precision. 9:05 a.m. Rewrote landing page copy for the Verta Life account. Estimated time, 45 minutes. Actual time, 38 minutes. 10:15 a.m. Client call with Innovate Corp. Resolved a back-end integration issue. Duration, 27 minutes. She documented everything. Every email of praise from a client, every late-night request from Marcus, every weekend shift she was guilted into working. She created a parallel ledger in the back of the journal. On one side, she calculated her actual earnings. Week 1, 62 hours worked. Gross pay, $620. On the adjacent page, she did the other math, the math Marcus didn't want her to see. Week 1, 62 hours billed at $250 per hour. Gross billing, $15,500. The disparity was so vast, it felt like fiction. Looking at the numbers side by side made her feel sick, but it also fueled the cold fire inside her. Her new demeanor didn't go unnoticed. Marcus called her into his office a few weeks later. He sat behind his enormous desk, a picture of corporate success. His suit was worth more than her monthly rent, his watch more than her car. "Jennifer," he began, steepling his fingers, "you've been quiet lately. Everything all right? Your work is still top-notch, of course. The clients love you. Harrington just called you a digital wizard yesterday." He smiled, expecting her to be flattered. "Everything's fine, Marcus," she said, her voice neutral. "Just focused on the Q4 deliverables." "Good, good," he nodded. "Because we are a team here, a family. We all have to pull together, make sacrifices to achieve greatness. Your time and effort are the bedrock of our success, and I want you to know that it is deeply, deeply appreciated." It was a masterclass in corporate manipulation. He was praising her, validating her, while simultaneously reinforcing the idea that her sacrifice was a noble, expected part of her role, not something that required fair compensation. He was telling her she was invaluable, while paying her as if she were disposable. In her mind, Jennifer was already transcribing his words into her journal under the heading, "Psychological Tactics." She started paying closer attention to the office dynamics. She saw how Marcus pitted team members against each other for the privilege of working on high-profile accounts. She noticed how he'd publicly praise someone for working through the weekend, creating a culture where personal time was seen as a lack of commitment. He was a master architect of this exploitative environment. Her investigation needed more than just a paper trail. It needed irrefutable proof of the billing rate. The invoice she'd seen was a fluke. She couldn't count on another one falling into her lap. She needed to hear it from the source. She started sitting in on sales calls whenever possible, volunteering to take notes. She listened intently as the senior account managers pitched new clients, dancing around the specific hourly rates, but always emphasizing the premium value of their talent. The talent, she knew, was her. But she still didn't have the smoking gun, an explicit confirmation of her billing rate in a context she could capture. That, she realized, would require a much bolder and far more dangerous step. As she closed her journal at the end of another 10-hour day, she wrote down her next objective: acquire audio evidence. The game was about to get a lot more risky. The decision to record conversations inside Apex Digital Strategies was a terrifying one. Jennifer spent 2 sleepless nights researching the legality of it in her state. She learned she was in a one-party consent state, meaning as long as she was a participant in the conversation, she could legally record it without the other person's knowledge. It was a small comfort, but it was the green light she needed. She couldn't use her phone. It was too obvious. Instead, she invested $100 in a high-quality miniature digital voice recorder, no bigger than a car key. It was discreet, powerful, and her new best friend. She also installed a piece of software on her work computer, a legitimate call recording app often used for quality assurance, buried deep in a folder of design assets. It was a ghost in the machine, silently waiting for her command. Her first attempt was a failure. She tried to record a meeting with Marcus and the finance director, a stern woman named Carol. Jennifer's hand trembled so much as she tried to activate the pen recorder in her pocket that she dropped it, creating a clatter that drew suspicious looks. She played it off as clumsiness, but her heart hammered in her chest for the rest of the meeting. She had underestimated the nerve this would take. She had to be smarter, less direct. Her opportunity came a week later. Carol, the finance director, scheduled a call with her to go over project hours for the month. It was a routine check-in. This was it. This was the moment. Instead of a face-to-face meeting where her nerves could betray her, it was a phone call. Just before Carol called, Jennifer took a deep breath. She double-checked that the recording software was active. Her screen showed a tiny, blinking red dot in the corner, visible only to her. The phone rang. She let it ring twice, then answered, her voice practiced and calm. "Hi, Carol. Jennifer here." "Jennifer." Carol's voice was brisk and businesslike. "Just need to confirm your hours for the Harrington account. My report shows you logged 172 hours. Is that correct?" "Yes, that's correct," Jennifer replied. 172. "Okay," Carol said, and Jennifer could hear her typing. "And just for our internal audit, I need to verify the billing classification. All your hours are still being billed at the Tier 1 creative rate, correct?" Jennifer's heart leaped. This was the opening. She feigned ignorance. The Tier 1 rate? I'm sorry. I'm not familiar with the internal classifications. I just log my hours. What exactly is that rate? There was a pause. Carol sighed, a sound of mild annoyance, as if Jennifer was asking a stupid question. It's the standard rate for our senior creative leads, Jennifer. The $2.50 per hour rate. It's what we bill clients like Harrington for your work. I just need to confirm you haven't been working on any lower-tier, non-billable projects. Jennifer felt a surge of adrenaline, a jolt of pure, triumphant electricity. Oh, right! The $2.50 rate. No, it was all for Harrington. All Tier 1. Excellent. That's all I need. Thanks. The line went dead. Jennifer stared at her monitor. She clicked on the tiny red icon. A dialog box popped up. Save recording. She saved the file with a generic name, Q4hoursaudit.mp3, and immediately encrypted it, then uploaded it to a secure personal cloud drive, deleting the original from the work computer. She had it. The words, clear as day, recorded in perfect digital quality. The $2.50 per hour rate, what we bill clients, for your work. It was the smoking gun, a nuke. This newfound evidence made her bolder. She started leaving the miniature recorder running in her pocket during team meetings. Most of what she captured was useless corporate jargon, but occasionally she'd catch a gem. She recorded Marcus telling a new hire, "We don't really do overtime pay here. We operate on a get-the-job-done mentality." She recorded him telling the sales team to emphasize the world-class talent we have in-house when pitching a new client, knowing full well that world-class talent was being paid barely enough to afford rent. Each recording, each entry in her journal, was another brick in the wall of her case. The stress was immense. She lived in constant fear of being discovered. Once, Marcus walked up behind her unexpectedly while she was reviewing her journal. She slammed it shut so fast she nearly broke the spine, pretending she was just sketching ideas. He raised an eyebrow, but moved on. The close call left her shaking. She was becoming a ghost in her own life, a spy in a company she once loved. But she knew it was necessary. Marcus had built his company on a foundation of lies. Jennifer was simply documenting the truth, one recorded syllable at a time. And soon, that truth would be ready to see the light of day. After an entire year of meticulous documentation, Jennifer's Project Nightingale journal was nearly full. It contained over 2,000 hours of logged work, dozens of client emails praising her by name, and a secure digital folder with 6 key audio recordings. She had an ironclad case, a mountain of evidence so high it could blot out the sun. Now, she needed the final piece, a formal, on-the-record denial of fair compensation. It was time for her annual performance review. She requested the meeting herself, framing it as a proactive discussion about her future at the company. Marcus agreed, his ego clearly pleased by her apparent ambition. She walked into his glass-walled office feeling not nervous but strangely calm, like a soldier before a battle for which she was perfectly prepared. "Jennifer, come in," Marcus beamed, gesturing to the chair opposite his desk. "Good to see you taking initiative. Let's talk about your year." He spent the first 10 minutes showering her with praise. He called her indispensable, a rock star, and the engine of the creative department. He brought up the Harrington account, the Verta Life campaign, the Innovate Corp. Crisis she had single-handedly averted. "Frankly, Jennifer," he said, leaning forward conspiratorially, "I don't know what I'd do without you." "I appreciate that, Marcus," Jennifer said, keeping her tone even. "I feel I've grown a lot this year and have taken on a level of responsibility far beyond my original job description. I'm not just a project manager anymore. I'm a senior creative strategist, a client relations specialist, and a team lead, all in one." "Exactly," he agreed. "And your dedication has been noted." "Good," Jennifer said, taking a steadying breath. This was the moment. Because I believe my compensation should reflect that value and that level of responsibility. Based on my performance, the revenue I've directly helped generate, and the market rates for my role, I am asking for a salary increase to $95,000 a year." She said the number clearly and confidently. It was a fair, well-researched figure. It wasn't even close to the millions she was generating for him. But it was a living wage that respected her skill. Marcus's smile didn't falter, but something in his eyes went cold. He leaned back in his chair and chuckled, a condescending, dismissive sound. "Jennifer, I admire your ambition. I really do," he said slowly. "But 95,000? That's a big jump. We have to consider budgets, company structure, the whole picture." He opened a drawer and pulled out a single sheet of paper. "Look, you are a valued member of this family, and because of your fantastic work, I have gone to bat for you. I have managed to secure you a raise." He slid the paper across the desk. Jennifer looked down. Her current salary was listed, and below it, her new salary. The increase was so small, she initially thought it was a typo. He was offering her a raise of 50 cents per hour. It worked out to an extra $1,040 a year before taxes. It was a slap in the face. It was a joke. "This is an insult," she said, her voice quiet, but shaking with rage. Marcus's friendly mask finally dropped. His expression hardened. "That's a very ungrateful way to look at it," he said, his voice dangerously low. "You are getting a raise when many are not. You should be thankful. You're young. You need to pay your dues. I'm investing in your future here, giving you experience you can't get anywhere else. That experience is worth more than any salary, Jennifer. You should see this as an opportunity, not a transaction." "Pay my dues?" she thought, the words echoing in her head. "I've paid them 25 times over, every single hour of every single day." Every ounce of her wanted to scream. To throw the paper in his face, to tell him she knew he was billing her out at $250 an hour, to tell him he was a thief and a liar. But she didn't. That would be an emotional victory, not a strategic one. She had a bigger plan. She stood up slowly, her face a blank mask. "I see," she said. "Thank you for your time, Marcus." She walked out of his office, not back to her desk, but straight out the front door of Apex Digital Strategies. She didn't look back. As the cool afternoon air hit her face, she pulled out her phone. She didn't call her family or a friend. She scrolled through her contacts and found the name she had saved a month prior, a name she'd gotten from a legal aid website. She pressed call. "Hello, you've reached the offices of Alvarez and Choi Law," a professional voice answered. Jennifer's voice was steady, cold, and clear. "Hello?" she said. "My name is Jennifer Reed. I need to schedule a consultation regarding a case of significant wage theft." The game was over. The war was about to begin. The law offices of Alvarez and Choi were the complete opposite of Apex Digital Strategies. The space was small, functional, and unpretentious. There were no glass walls or designer furniture, just shelves overflowing with thick legal books and the quiet hum of diligent work. Ms. Eleanor Alvarez was a woman in her late 50s, with sharp, intelligent eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor that Jennifer found instantly reassuring. She listened without interruption as Jennifer laid out her story. She didn't just tell it. She presented it. First, she placed the black Project Nightingale journal on the table. She opened it. showing the lawyer the months of meticulous, dated, and timed entries. Then, she took out her laptop and played the audio file of the phone call with Carol, the finance director. As the words, "The $250 per hour rate, what we bill clients for your work," filled the quiet office, Ms. Alvarez's eyebrows shot up. She leaned closer, her expression shifting from professional interest to predatory focus. "Do you have any other evidence?" the lawyer asked, her voice laced with a new intensity. Jennifer nodded and handed her a USB stick. "On there are copies of every client email praising my work, my employment contract, my pay stubs for the last 12 months, and a copy of a client invoice I acquired." Ms. Alvarez spent the next 20 minutes in silence, reviewing the contents of the drive. She read the emails. She cross-referenced the pay stubs with the journal entries. She listened to the other audio clips of Marcus. When she was finished, she took off her glasses, polished them slowly, and looked Jennifer straight in the eye. "Ms. Reed," she said, a slow, dangerous smile spreading across her face. "This is not a case. This is a public execution. What they have done is not just unethical, it is profoundly illegal. This is a textbook case of wage theft, fraudulent misrepresentation, and unjust enrichment. They haven't just stolen your wages, they've stolen your value." A wave of validation, so powerful it almost brought Jennifer to tears, washed over her. "So we can sue?" "Sue," Ms. Alvarez laughed, a short, sharp bark. "Ms. Reed, we are going to drop a bomb on them. We will file a lawsuit so aggressive, so thoroughly documented, that they won't even want to think about a courtroom. Their entire business model is built on this exploitation. A public trial, with this evidence presented to a jury, would not only bankrupt them, it would obliterate their reputation beyond repair. They will settle. The only question is for how much." 2 days later, a legal demand letter, thick as a novel, was delivered by courier to Marcus Thorne's office. It laid out, in excruciating detail, every single piece of evidence Jennifer had collected. It cited state and federal labor laws Apex had violated. And it ended with a demand for back pay, damages, and legal fees totaling a staggering $750,000. The reaction at Apex was immediate and seismic. Jennifer, who had been using her sick days since the disastrous review, started getting frantic calls and texts from her colleagues. The atmosphere in the office, they said, had turned toxic. Marcus was in a state of perpetual rage, holding closed-door meetings with lawyers. Their first official response came a week later, via their high-priced corporate law firm. It was an offer of $20,000, contingent on her signing an ironclad non-disclosure agreement that would forbid her from ever speaking about her time at the company. Jennifer was in Ms. Alvarez's office when the email came through. "What do you think?" the lawyer asked, watching her client's face. Jennifer thought about the 50-cent raise. She thought about the condescending smile on Marcus's face. She thought about the thousands of hours she'd poured into that company for $10 an hour. "Tell them no," Jennifer said, her voice firm. "Tell them their next offer needs to have another zero on it, and then we can start talking." Ms. Alvarez grinned. "That's what I was hoping you'd say." The gambit had been played. Jennifer had shown her hand, and it was a royal flush. Now, all she had to do was wait for the panicked, cornered, and guilty men on the other side of the table to fold. They had stolen from her for a year. Now, it was time for them to pay. The negotiation was a brutal war of attrition fought through lawyers. Apex Digital's legal team tried everything. First, they tried intimidation, threatening a countersuit for breach of contract and theft of proprietary information, a clear reference to the invoice and recordings. Ms. Alvarez swatted this away contemptuously. reminding them that evidence of illegal activity is not proprietary information, and that such a countersuit would be laughed out of court and only serve to make them look more guilty during discovery. Next, they tried to discredit Jennifer, painting her as a disgruntled employee with a personal vendetta. Ms. Alvarez responded with a dossier of the client testimonials, performance reviews, and emails where Marcus himself had called Jennifer a superstar. The weeks dragged on. The initial offer of $20,000 crept up to $50,000, then $100,000. Jennifer, on her lawyer's advice, remained silent and refused every offer. The pressure was on Apex. The longer they waited, the closer they got to a public court filing and the discovery process, a legal procedure where Ms. Alvarez would be allowed to subpoena all of their financial records, internal emails, and employee contracts. It was a corporate death sentence, and they knew it. The breaking point came during a conference call between the legal teams. Apex's lawyer was making a blustering argument about business overhead and market realities when Ms. Alvarez cut him off. "Let's be perfectly clear," she said, her voice like ice. "My client has you dead to rights. We have audio of your finance director confirming the billing rate. We have a year's worth of documentation. If this goes to trial, I will not only depose Mr. Thorne, I will subpoena every single one of your current and former employees. I will subpoena your entire client list to confirm your billing practices. This isn't just about my client anymore. This is about your entire fraudulent business model. Settle now, or I will dismantle your company in a public forum, piece by piece." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. The threat was not an exaggeration, and everyone knew it. 2 hours later, a new offer came in via email. There was no preamble, no justification, just a number. $500,000. Jennifer stared at the email in Ms. Alvarez's office. It felt unreal. It was more money than she had ever imagined seeing in one place. It was freedom. It was justice. It was the price of her silence. "We accept," she said, her voice barely a whisper. The signing of the settlement agreement was a quiet, anticlimactic affair. Jennifer never saw Marcus Thorne again. The papers were signed in separate rooms. As she put her pen to the final page, she felt not elation, but a profound sense of release. A heavy weight she had been carrying for over a year was finally lifted. Her last official act as an employee of Apex Digital Strategies was to go to the office on a Saturday to collect her personal belongings. The office was empty and silent. It felt smaller, less intimidating. She packed her few photos and a coffee mug into a small cardboard box. On her desk, she left one item, her simple, black, hardbound journal, Project Nightingale. She left it open to the first page, a silent monument to the truth she had fought so hard for. 1 year later, Jennifer wasn't working for anyone. She was the founder of Reed Creative Consulting, a small, nimble marketing agency with a growing list of clients who appreciated her talent and honesty. She had just hired her first 2 employees, both bright, ambitious graduates. She sat at her own desk, in her own office, preparing their first paychecks. She looked at the hourly rate she had set for them. It was a fair rate, a generous rate. It was a rate that respected their time, their skill, and their humanity. It was a rate that still allowed her company to be profitable, but it was built on a foundation of partnership, not exploitation. She had won more than money in her fight against Apex. She had won back her own value. And in doing so, she had made a new vow: to build a company that was everything Apex Digital Strategies was not. A place where talent was nurtured, not mined. A place where a paycheck was a fair trade, not a calculated deception. Her victory wasn't just in the $500,000 that sat in her bank account. It was in the quiet satisfaction of doing things the right way. Jennifer's story is a powerful reminder that knowledge is power, and that one person with the courage to document the truth can take on a corrupt system and win. It's a story about knowing your worth and having the guts to demand it. Thank you for watching this story all the way to the end. If you found it as compelling as we did, do us a huge favor and hit that like button. It really helps the channel, and make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next corporate drama. Now, we want to hear from you. Let us know in the comments. What city are you watching from, and what is your age? We love seeing where our community is from. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.